My name is Rebecca Anderson, and I learned early that being underestimated is the most powerful position you can hold. For 15 years, my family treated me like their favorite punchline. The daughter who never amounted to anything. The sister who couldn't understand basic business concepts. The disappointment who worked some entry-level government job, while my brother Marcus built his manufacturing empire. What they didn't know could fill volumes. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. Not at that Thanksgiving dinner, but 7 years earlier when I made a decision that would change everything. Growing up as the youngest Anderson, I watched my brother Marcus receive every advantage. Private business tutors at 14. A full ride to Wharton. A $500,000 seed fund from Dad's contacts to start Anderson Manufacturing when he was just 25. Meanwhile, I got lectures about realistic expectations and knowing your limitations. Rebecca, sweetheart, Mom would say with that particular tone of condescending concern, not everyone is cut out for business. Maybe you should consider teaching? Or nursing. When I announced I was majoring in economics and mathematics at a state school, paid for entirely by my scholarships, Dad actually laughed. Economics? Honey, that's for people who are going to actually use it. What are you going to do, work at a bank? Marcus was worse. 5 years older, already running his manufacturing startup, he treated every family gathering like an opportunity to highlight my inadequacies. Rebecca still doesn't understand the difference between gross and net profit, he'd announced to his business partners at Sunday dinners. I tried to explain it 3 times. I understood it perfectly. I just learned early that correcting him meant hours of condescending explanations and Dad backing up Marcus's expertise. So I smiled, nodded, and quietly graduated summa cum laude with a double major in economics and applied mathematics. My first job was with a small government contractor in D.C., Sterling Solutions Group. Sounded boring. It was supposed to sound boring. That was the point. What do you do there, sweetie? Mom would ask at Christmas. Data analysis. Really dry stuff. Government reports, compliance documentation. Their eyes would glaze over. Perfect. What I actually did was build predictive financial models for federal agencies. Models that became so accurate, so valuable, that within 3 years Sterling Solutions Group was fielding offers from private equity firms that had heard whispers about their secret weapon. That secret weapon was me. By age 26 I had equity. By 27 I was being courted by investment firms. By 28 I had sold my stake in Sterling for $18 million and started my own venture capital firm focused on manufacturing technology. I called it Blackstone Ventures. Generic enough to be invisible. Professional enough to be taken seriously. And I told absolutely no one in my family. So you're still doing that government thing? Marcus asked at my 29th birthday dinner, held at his house naturally to show off his new lakefront property. Still there, I confirmed, cutting my stake. Same desk, same reports. Must be nice, his wife Jennifer added with a saccharine smile. So stable. No stress. Not like Marcus, he barely sleeps with everything he's managing. Marcus preened. Anderson Manufacturing had grown to $50 million in annual revenue. He never missed an opportunity to mention it. How's the expansion going? Dad asked him, ignoring me entirely. Incredible. We're scaling the Midwest facility, bringing in new automation technology. The capital requirements are significant, but we've got investors interested. I took another bite. I knew exactly which investors. I'd spent 3 weeks analyzing his company's financial projections, market position and growth trajectory. Anderson Manufacturing was impressive, not because of Marcus's business acumen but despite it. He had good instincts for manufacturing processes but terrible financial discipline. His books were a mess of over-leveraged expansions and questionable capital allocation. But the core business? Solid. The technology? Leading edge. The market position? Defensible. So when his CFO put out quiet feelers for a $127 million investment to fund a major expansion, I structured a deal through 3 shell companies and a trust that made me completely invisible. The term sheet was simple. Convertible debt with seats on the board held by my representatives, guaranteed returns and strict financial controls. Marcus would get his expansion capital. I would get oversight and a path to majority ownership if he defaulted. My attorney presented the offer through official channels. Marcus never knew I was in the room, metaphorically speaking. Anonymous investor based overseas, his CFO told him according to my sources. Very sophisticated, very hands-off. But the terms are the best we're going to get. Marcus signed without hesitation. For 2 years I watched from the shadows as my $127 million transformed his company. New facilities. Advanced robotics. Streamlined supply chains. Anderson Manufacturing's revenue climbed to $340 million annually. Marcus took all the credit, naturally. You know what separates successful people from everyone else? He'd lecture at family gatherings. Vision. Strategic thinking. The ability to see opportunities others miss. I'd smile and ask him to pass the potatoes. Meanwhile, my venture capital portfolio expanded to 11 companies. 4 successful exits. 7 ongoing investments. Total portfolio value, $680 million. I lived in a modest condo in Arlington. Drove a 7-year-old Honda. Wore clothes from Target. Still at that government job? Distant relatives would ask. Still there. And still single? Focused on my career. They'd nod sympathetically as if I needed their pity. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Mom called. Rebecca, sweetheart, we need to discuss something. My stomach tightened. That tone never meant anything good. Marcus is bringing some very important people to Thanksgiving dinner, she continued. Potential investors, business partners. It's a big opportunity for him. Okay. So we need everyone on their best behavior. Professional. Sophisticated. She paused. Maybe you could not mention your job? Or if you do, just keep it vague. Why would I do that? Honey, you know Marcus works hard to maintain a certain image. Having family members in less impressive positions, it just doesn't reflect well. I felt the old familiar burn. My job is perfectly respectable, Mom. Of course it is. For you. It's just, these people are venture capitalists. Very wealthy. Very successful. Marcus needs to seem like he comes from a family of high achievers. So I'm supposed to pretend I don't exist? Don't be dramatic. Just maybe let Marcus do most of the talking. It's his day to shine. I hung up, sat in my home office, worth more than their lake house if they'd known, and stared at my screens. 3 monitors. Real-time portfolio tracking. Investment reports. Market analysis. On the center screen, Anderson Manufacturing's quarterly financials glowed. My $127 million was performing exactly as projected. The company's valuation had tripled. Marcus had no idea that every major decision for the past 2 years had been guided by my representatives on the board. No idea that the anonymous overseas investor, who'd saved his expansion, was his allegedly financially illiterate sister. I made a decision then. I was done being invisible. I arrived at Mom and Dad's house at 2 p.m., carrying a store-bought pie. My armor of invisibility. Marcus's Mercedes SUV was already there, along with 2 other luxury cars I didn't recognize. Inside, the house hummed with expensive cologne and business casual conversation. Marcus stood in the center of the living room, holding court with 3 men in designer sweaters. Rebecca. Mom intercepted me with a tight smile. You're here. Marcus has some important guests. Maybe you could help me in the kitchen? Translation. Stay out of sight. Sure, Mom. I spent the next hour arranging vegetables and being useful while Marcus's voice carried from the other room. Closed the deal last quarter. Brought in $127 million in investment capital. Completely transformed our trajectory. That's impressive, one of the guests said. Overseas investor? Private equity, very sophisticated fund. They recognized what I was building and wanted in. I carved the turkey with more force than necessary. Dinner was the same performance. Marcus at the head of the table. Dad's seat notably, with his guests of honor flanking him. I was relegated to the far end, next to Aunt Carol and her boring husband. The conversation stayed firmly in Marcus's wheelhouse. Manufacturing trends, market analysis, expansion strategies. He spoke with the confidence of someone who'd built everything himself. His CFO, David Chin, was seated mid-table. I caught his eye once. He looked uncomfortable. David knew. He was one of my representatives on Anderson Manufacturing's board. He'd been sending me weekly reports for 2 years. We'd agreed never to acknowledge our connection at family events. But tonight, watching Marcus preen and pontificate, I could see David's jaw tightening. Marcus, one of the investors said, I have to ask, what's your background in advanced financial modeling? The capital structure you've built is unusually sophisticated. Marcus didn't miss a beat. I've always had a natural aptitude for numbers. Some people just see patterns others miss. I set down my fork. Rebecca, Jennifer said loudly, clearly trying to shift attention away from business talk. How's your little job going? Still doing data entry. The table went quiet. I do analysis, I corrected quietly. Financial modeling, actually. Marcus laughed. Rebecca thinks she does financial modeling. She processes reports. I create the models. Sweetheart, Dad interrupted, let's not bore Marcus's guests with work details. One of the investors, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, looked at me with interest. What kind of modeling? Predictive analytics, capital structure optimization, risk. She doesn't understand what those words mean, Marcus cut in, his tone playful but cutting. Rebecca's always trying to sound impressive. It's adorable. The table laughed. Polite, social laughter that sliced like razors. She can't even balance a checkbook, Marcus announced, grinning at his audience. I've tried to teach her basic accounting principles 3 times. It just doesn't stick. Dad nodded. Some people are numbers people, some aren't. Nothing wrong with that. I felt heat rising in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. More precise. I kept eating my turkey. Mechanical bites while Marcus continued. The difference between someone like Rebecca and actual business professionals, he explained to his rapt audience, is understanding leverage, capital efficiency, strategic debt structuring. Convertible debt instruments with board representation and default triggers, I said quietly. Marcus blinked. What? You were explaining sophisticated capital structures, I continued, my voice level. I assume you're referring to the $127 million convertible note with the anonymous investor. The one with the 18-month conversion option and the 3 board seats. The table went silent. Marcus's smile faltered. How do you know about? The debt covenants are pretty standard, I continued. EBITDA maintenance ratios, capital expenditure restrictions, change of control provisions. Though the conversion discount was generous, 22.5% below market valuation at time of trigger. David Chin had gone very still. Patricia was staring at me with open fascination. Marcus found his voice. You're just repeating things you've overheard. The warrant coverage was interesting too, I said. Full ratchet anti-dilution protection. That's aggressive for a company your size. Your anonymous investor must have serious concerns about dilution risk. Rebecca, Mom hissed. This isn't appropriate. Though I suppose when you're putting in $127 million, I continued, you want protection. Especially with your burn rate. Marcus's face had gone red. You don't know anything about our burn rate. $3.2 million monthly. Down from $4.1 million after the restructuring in Q2. Better, but still concerning given your debt service obligations. Jennifer's eyes widened. Marcus looked like I'd slapped him. Where are you getting this information? He demanded. I smiled. I read. This is confidential company data. Is it? The investment terms require quarterly disclosure to stakeholders. I'm just observing publicly available information. That was a lie. But he couldn't prove it without admitting he didn't know who had access to what. One of the investors leaned forward. You clearly understand complex financing. What do you do again? Government work, I said simply. Very boring. Doesn't sound boring. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Rebecca, you're embarrassing yourself. This is my dinner, my investors, my company. Is it? I asked softly. What? Your company. Singular ownership. That's what you've been telling everyone, right? That you built this empire yourself. His mouth opened. Closed. Because from what I understand, I continued, the anonymous investor's convertible debt has a pretty aggressive conversion trigger. Default on any covenant, miss any milestone, or here's the interesting one, fail to maintain agreed-upon governance standards, and that debt automatically converts to equity at that 22.5% discount. I paused, watching the color drain from his face. Given your current valuation and the conversion terms, that would give the investor, what, roughly 73% ownership? Which would make them not just a major shareholder but the controlling interest. The actual owner. David Chin was staring at his plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. Patricia had set down her wine glass. Marcus found his voice. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone. I keep eating my turkey while you lecture people about business. But you know what I was actually doing? I showed him my screen. The message I'd typed but not sent. Withdraw all $127 million from Anderson Manufacturing. Accelerate debt conversion. Execute change of control provisions. Below it, my contact name, Blackstone Ventures, Investment Management. Marcus's phone began to ring. Then David Chen's phone. Then his CFO's phone from the other room where he'd left it charging. Marcus stared at his screen. It's the board chairman. At 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving. Why is the board chairman? He answered. Hello. This is, what? What do you mean major shareholder action? What investor notification? His face went white as he listened. A withdrawal? That's impossible. The investor is overseas, they can't just, wait. What do you mean the investor is domestic? What do you mean she's? He looked up at me. I smiled and took another bite of turkey. Who authorized this? Marcus yelled into the phone. David. David Chin slowly raised his hand. I'm your board representative, Marcus. But I'm also Blackstone Ventures' primary analyst. I've been their eyes and ears on Anderson Manufacturing for 2 years. The table erupted. What the hell is going on? Dad demanded. Marcus's face had gone from white to crimson. You're saying that Rebecca, that my sister, is your majority investor? David confirmed quietly. Has been since the beginning. The $127 million? That's her capital. The board oversight? Her representatives. The strategic restructuring that saved your company? Her analysts. No, Marcus whispered. No, that's impossible. She works for the government. She can't even balance a checkbook? I finished. I know. You've mentioned it. Several times. Tonight alone, actually. Jennifer had her hand over her mouth. Mom looked like she might faint. Patricia started laughing. Oh my God. This is the best Thanksgiving dinner I've ever attended. Marcus's phone rang again. Then again. His email notification sound became a continuous stream. What's happening? He asked desperately. What did you do? I set down my fork. You want to know what I did? I invested $127 million in a company with solid fundamentals but terrible financial leadership. I structured a deal that protected my capital while giving you enough rope to either succeed or hang yourself. For 2 years, my team guided every major decision through board representation. We cleaned up your accounting messes, fixed your capital structure, prevented 3 separate disasters you never even knew about. I stood up. And all of it, every dollar, every decision, every success you've been bragging about, came from your financially illiterate little sister. The room was dead silent. The withdrawal notification you're receiving? I continued. That's me pulling my capital. All $127 million. You have 72 hours to secure replacement financing or the debt converts to equity at terms that give me 73% ownership of your company, your empire, your legacy. You can't do this. I can read your contracts. David has copies if you've lost yours. Marcus looked at David desperately. Stop her. You work for the company. I work for the investor, David corrected. Always have. And as her representative, I'm advising that Anderson Manufacturing's governance has become untenable. The CEO lacks the financial sophistication to manage this level of capital responsibly. This is insane, Jennifer said. You can't just. Rebecca wouldn't. She doesn't have that kind of money. She has $680 million in active portfolio investments, Patricia said. She pulled out her own phone, clearly Googling. Blackstone Ventures. Holy shit, that's you? You're the Blackstone that backed Microdynamics? And the Tessera acquisition. Among others, I confirmed. Patricia laughed again. We've been trying to get a meeting with Blackstone for 6 months. Our fund wanted to co-invest on the Morrison deal. I know, I said. I turned you down. Your due diligence was sloppy. Marcus's phone rang again. He stared at it like it was a bomb. You should answer that, I said. It's probably your lawyer. You're going to need one. I left that Thanksgiving dinner to absolute chaos. Marcus screaming. Mom crying. Dad demanding I explain myself. Jennifer threatening lawsuits. I walked out, got in my Honda and drove home. My phone exploded with messages. Family group chat melting down. Marcus sending desperate texts. We can talk about this. Don't do this to the family. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Too late for sorry. By Friday morning the financial world knew. Word travels fast when a $127 million position gets liquidated. Anderson Manufacturing's emergency board meeting was leaked to industry publications. Anonymous investor revealed AS founder's sister, read one headline. Family drama rocks $340 million manufacturing firm, read another. Marcus had 72 hours to find replacement financing. At Thanksgiving weekend with every bank closed and investors unreachable. He never stood a chance. Saturday afternoon my attorney called. Marcus's team is requesting an emergency meeting. They want to negotiate terms. No negotiation, I said. The terms were set 2 years ago. He signed them. Rebecca, he's your brother. He's a CEO who failed to maintain governance standards. Business is business. Sunday evening, 71 hours after I sent the withdrawal notice, Marcus called me directly. Rebecca, please. We can fix this. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone you're brilliant. Whatever you want. I don't want your apologies. Then what? What do you want? I want you to understand what you had. And what you lost. The company? Respect, I said quietly. For 15 years I watched you dismiss me. Mock me. Use me as your punchline to make yourself look better. Every family gathering, every dinner, every holiday, I was your favorite example of failure. I didn't mean. You did. You absolutely meant it. Because it made you feel superior. It made your success look bigger when compared to my failure. Silence on the line. I could have helped you, I continued. I wanted to help you. That's why I structured the investment the way I did. To protect the company while giving you credit for the success. I stayed anonymous because I didn't want to embarrass you. Then why? Because you couldn't even give me basic respect at a family dinner. Because you had to perform for your investors by humiliating me. Because after everything you still saw me as nothing. Rebecca. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up. Monday morning, 72 hours and 14 minutes after my withdrawal notice, the debt converted to equity. I became the owner of 73% of Anderson Manufacturing. By Monday afternoon I'd called an emergency shareholders meeting. By Tuesday Marcus was removed as CEO. David Chin took over as interim CEO. Marcus retained a 22% stake and a seat on the board. Subordinate position, no operational authority. By Wednesday my attorney had restructured the company's governance. New bylaws. New financial controls. New leadership team. Anderson Manufacturing didn't collapse. Stabilized then thrived. Within 6 months, revenue increased 34%. Within a year, we'd secured 3 major contracts Marcus had been too financially disorganized to bid on properly. The company Marcus built, but couldn't sustain, became the company I saved. I never went to another family Thanksgiving. Mom called weekly for months, begging me to make things right. Dad sent lawyers with offers to buy back Marcus's shares. Jennifer's social media went dark after several posts about family betrayal backfired when the full story leaked. Marcus himself disappeared from public view. Last I heard he'd taken a VP position at a mid-sized firm in Ohio. Respectable job. Good salary. Nothing like what he'd had. His quarterly dividend checks from his 22% stake in Anderson Manufacturing probably softened the blow. He makes more in passive income than he ever did as CEO. But he has to live knowing his little sister owns his legacy. Patricia's fund ended up co-investing with me on 2 deals. We have coffee quarterly. She brings up that Thanksgiving dinner at least once per meeting. Best due diligence I ever witnessed, she always says. Watching you dismantle your brother's ego in real time? Masterclass. David Chin is still CEO. Anderson Manufacturing is now valued at $890 million. My original $127 million investment is worth approximately $650 million. Not bad for someone who can't balance a checkbook. People ask if I regret it. If I wish I'd handled things differently. The truth? Well, I gave Marcus every opportunity. I invested in his company anonymously, letting him take credit for success that came from my capital and my oversight. I stayed quiet through years of dismissal and mockery. I played small to let him feel big. But respect isn't negotiable. Dignity isn't optional. When you spend 15 years being someone's punchline, you learn something valuable. Power isn't about who talks the loudest or stands in the center of the room. Power is about who signs the checks. Last month, I saw Marcus at a distant cousin's wedding. We nodded politely across the room. He left early. I stayed, danced, enjoyed myself. Later that night, Mom cornered me. Are you happy now? You destroyed your brother. No, I said. I saved his company. He destroyed himself the moment he mistook my silence for stupidity and my patience for weakness. I'm done being underestimated. And I'm done making myself small so others can feel large. My name is Rebecca Anderson. I'm 34 years old. I manage a $680 million venture capital portfolio. I own 73% of a $890 million manufacturing company. And yes, I can balance a checkbook. Actually, I can balance a lot more than that.